What if the most chilling part of the story isn't what was said, but what was never properly explained? A young actor's passing was labeled a tragic accident almost immediately, yet a private investigator has now hinted at details that simply don't sit comfortably with that conclusion. And as online fragments disappeared, one question grew louder. Why does this case leave so many people feeling unsettled? Stay with me, because today we're not here to spread rumors. We're here to map the unanswered questions, the public reaction, and the quiet signs that made this story impossible to ignore. When the news of Menglong's passing first broke, the shock came not only from the loss itself, but from how swiftly the story seemed to close. An official explanation was offered almost immediately, framing the event as a tragic accident. On paper, the conclusion appeared neat and final, yet emotionally it felt unfinished. For many viewers, this was not about disbelief, but about instinct. Human beings have an intuitive sense when a story lacks weight, when something significant has been compressed into something overly simple. Closure, especially in cases involving a public figure, is not merely procedural. It requires time, transparency, and a sense that every reasonable question has been allowed to surface. The speed of the conclusion created a psychological gap. People were still processing grief when they were told the story was already over. This disconnect triggered discomfort rather than acceptance. The issue was not that answers were given, but that they arrived before the public had even understood what questions they needed to ask. In such moments, doubt does not come from suspicion alone. It comes from emotional misalignment. When a life that touched millions is summarized too quickly, audiences feel that something human has been overlooked. They begin to ask whether the ending truly matches the complexity of the life that came before it. This is where attention quietly deepens, not through outrage, but through reflection. Viewers start revisiting details, replaying timelines, and comparing what they feel with what they are told. The story no longer feels resolved. Instead, it lingers, not as a conclusion, but as a pause that arrived too soon. In the digital age, silence can be louder than words. One of the most powerful emotional drivers in this case was not what remained online, but what appeared briefly and then disappeared. Videos, audio fragments, posts, and keywords surfaced and then vanished. This pattern created a unique form of tension that modern audiences instinctively recognize. When information disappears without explanation, it does not simply fade, it transforms. Absence invites imagination, and imagination fills gaps far more aggressively than facts ever could. Viewers begin to feel as though they have glimpsed something important, only to have it taken away before it could be fully understood. This phenomenon is psychologically unsettling. It creates a sense of being interrupted mid-thought, mid-emotion. Even viewers who are cautious and rational feel unsettled by sudden erasure because it disrupts the natural process of meaning-making. People do not assume wrongdoing automatically, but they do sense restraint, and restraint invites questions. What makes this effect particularly powerful is its universality. Anyone who has ever lost access to information, been told not to ask, or felt a conversation end prematurely can relate. The story becomes personal, not because of its details, but because of the emotional experience it mirrors. As a result, audiences do not simply watch. They search, save, share, and archive. They feel compelled to preserve what feels fragile. The case stops being a news item and becomes a shared responsibility to remember, to document, and to resist forgetting. This is how digital disappearance fuels collective attention, not through drama, but through the deeply human discomfort of unfinished understanding. One detail altered the emotional atmosphere of the story almost immediately. The report that Menglong had attended a private gathering the night before his death. This information did not accuse, explain, or conclude anything, yet it shifted how audiences perceived the narrative. Why? Because private spaces carry different emotional weight than public ones. They suggest unrecorded moments, unguarded interactions, and conversations that leave no digital trail. When viewers hear the words private gathering, their minds naturally turn inward, imagining what cannot be seen rather than what can be proven. This does not automatically lead to blame. Instead, it creates emotional proximity. The story moves closer, feels more intimate, and therefore more fragile. Viewers begin to wonder about atmosphere rather than actions, about dynamics rather than events. The situation intensified when reports suggested that some individuals associated with that evening later removed or altered older online posts. In isolation, this behavior can have many explanations: privacy, fear, fatigue. But within a story already marked by silence and speed, such actions take on amplified emotional meaning. Audiences interpret deletion not as evidence, but as avoidance. And avoidance, whether intentional or not, feels unsettling. It suggests discomfort, and discomfort invites scrutiny. At this stage, the public is no longer focused on what happened, but on how people responded afterwards. Behavior becomes narrative. Silence becomes context. The temperature of the story rises, not because of accusations, but because human reactions rarely feel neutral when viewed through a lens of uncertainty. To keep this topic impactful without crossing ethical or platform boundaries, new approaches are essential. One effective method is the neutral timeline review, presenting known events clearly without interpretation, allowing viewers to see the sequence for themselves. Another is media literacy moments, where audiences are reminded how to distinguish verified reporting from speculation. A short tribute segment focusing on Yu's professionalism and character recenters the story on humanity rather than mystery. Finally, inviting viewers to submit respectful, unanswered questions, not theories, encourages engagement without escalation. These approaches allow the story to evolve while remaining grounded, thoughtful, and safe. They ensure the narrative stays alive, not through repetition, but through responsibility. If you'd like more calm, respectful, and well-structured updates on Chinese entertainment stories told with heart, clarity, and responsibility, please subscribe to Update X124CH. Thank you for watching. Truly, your support helps us keep making content that values people over noise. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our next upload.